Yeah. Okay. We are going to discuss today on do policies and budgets reinforce and reproduce gender inequality. Um, so we looked in terms of what strategies we will follow to achieve gender equality. So therefore, to reinforce that input, we are going to discuss today. One of the understanding that we have is that the existing structures are not neutral. So the existing structures, including governance, that has instruments of policies and budgets, are also not gender neutral. So therefore, they often contribute to increasing the gender inequality rather than reducing the gender inequality. So we thought we will discuss today on policies relevant to our context. But before we get into that, we have with us Chandi from Women's Development Center, Sri Lanka. She has been very active in our cohort and also a active member of the Coles Partner Organization in Sri Lanka. So I have requested her to share her perspective, her thoughts, her reflection in terms of how gender policies, how policies in Sri Lanka impact the gender inequality, or what gaps exist that contribute to either maintaining or increasing the gender inequality. So thank you, Chandi, for joining us. The floor is now open for you. I will make you a co-host so that you can share the screen. Chandi, can you hear me?
Yes, Damu,
Yeah,
thank
okay.
you.
I will now co-host you so that you can. I have now made you co-host. You can start sharing the screen.
Okay. I have to share the screen.
Yeah. You go to there is a share screen thing. Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, and I'm so glad that you wanted me to present, and it's a privilege because I'm a good student of you.
Thank you for
thank you, and good morning and good evening, others wherever you are. I'm Chandra Tilaka from Women's Development Center, Kandy, and I'm working as a program manager. And let me full screen. Yes. Yeah. So I was asked to talk about a little bit on do national policies and budgets often reinforce and reproduce gender inequality. So as Dr. Damo requested that I just wanted to consider about my country and how it's happened in here in Sri Lanka. And I'm happy to share my knowledge with you all. And for that, my answer is yes, because if you consider the main areas that reinforce gender inequality in our cultures, I would like to give a few areas that gender inequality is reflecting. One is that unequal power relations between women and men as a result of socially constructed gender norms, beliefs, and attitudes that we already know that how the gender inequality is persistent within our cultures. Other thing is the culture and the religious beliefs and practices. And those are the things that we mainly focuses when we talk about gender inequality. But we also need to consider the gender insensitive laws and policies, and also gender irresponsive budgeting, how those things are affecting to promote, to enhance gender inequality within our cultures. So I would like to uh, pay my attention with today's topic, mainly on the gender insensitive laws and policies, as well as the gender irrespective budgeting, how that will affect in our cultures and the countries, to further strengthen gender inequality. In that, I would like to give two main keywords for us to remember when we talk about the gender inequality. In this context, one is the gender sensitivity. What is gender sensitivity? Gender sensitivity is identifies and acknowledge the existing differences and inequalities between women and men, considers unequal gender norms, roles, and relations, but does not address the inequality perpetuated by them. It adopts a gender assessment and collects gender disaggregated data to measure changes in gender differences. So, which is something I came across with my learning from the cohort 2, and then gender responsive. Other keywords that we should remember when we talk about this, and gender responsive is identifies and acknowledge the existing differences and inequalities between women and men, and articulates policies and initiatives that address the different needs and aspirations, capacities, and control of women and men. So there's two different things in between gender sensitive and gender responsive. Gender sensitive does not address the inequality, but gender responsive articulate policies and initiatives that address the difference, need, and aspirations of capacities, etc. So I think if I made a mistake, Dr. Damo will correct me later.
Yeah. No, you're correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we will see how the gender sensitive laws and policies reinforce gender equality. Gender sensitive laws and policies definitely should have laws as three main areas that I would, this is, gender sensitive laws and policies should enable equal women's participation in economic and political spheres, and should have strategies to empowering women and girls, and should have strategies to transform in education for women and girls, and also increase women political participation, and should have strategies to enhance in livelihoods for women. So these are the main areas that policies, if the policies are gender sensitive, then it should have strategies to in these areas, especially empowering women and girls, and transforming education for women and girls, and also increase women's political participation and enhance livelihoods for women and girls. And also, if the laws and policies are gender sensitive, it should have strategies to enforcement and implementation of laws and policies, especially the laws and policies that addressed gender-based violence, and also all forms of women and child rights violation. For example, trafficking, equal wage, rights of LGBTQI communities. So the gender sensitive, if the policies are gender sensitive, it should help to enforce and implement that policies within the ground, within the system. But we know that how the case of rape, especially marital rape, divorces, sexual abuse, that sort of things, how long grabbing, and in my country, sometimes it's take more than 20 years to get the justice. So those are the things that policies are available, but it should implement, and that there should be a strategies to that for that. And also the gender sensitive laws and policies should have strategies to policy influences, especially the fundamental freedom of women when it's come to freedom of assembly, speech, and expression, because that hidden, that freedom is tied. So the women should have that freedom within the family, within the community, and even in the especially in the decision making platform. She should have that power. And also, if those are sensitive, then ratifying universal conventions on women's rights, example CEDAW. So you may have learned about that many countries still, though they are signed CEDAW, but they haven't ratified within the countries. And also ensure the sexual and reproductive health and rights. So those aspects should consider if it is a gender sensitive laws. And then gender responsive budgeting. What does it mean by gender responsive budgeting? If our country's budget, annual budgets are gender sensitive or gender responsive, then that budget should have strategies. And what does it mean by gender responsive budget? Gender responsive budgeting is a tool to achieve gender inequalities. The main objective of gender responsive budgeting is to secure gender equality by creating opportunities for women and girls to participate in social, economic, and political spheres. And gender sensitive and responsive budget must recognize differences in women and men's need and circumstances. And also, gender sensitive and responsive budget must invest on human capital with gender perspectives. It should not as welfare-oriented expenditure. So, what does it mean? It should pay attention the different needs of women and girl children, especially the working women. There should be expenditures for child care services or easy access to housing and education facilities. That sort of things need to be considered, because then only women can contribute for the economic and also can participate for the economic activities and the social activities with their reproductive health and reproductive roles and responsibilities. And also, gender sensitive and responsive budget must assess fund allocation and taxes with gender perspectives, because it should improve the public services. Women are the primary users or beneficiaries of public services, such as childcare facilities again, and also especially the reproductive health care services, that sort of things. The women are the primary users, especially free health services. And those things should be available, that and also housing and that sort of things, then that will easy for women to rather giving attention, care in children, and mainly dealing with the reproductive roles and responsibilities. She also will have a space to get engaged with the livelihood and economic activities. That is why public services may disproportionately impact on women and men like that, but this I mentioned here because it's impact differently women and men. So there, when our country's budget spending money to improve public services, it should have the concern about the women's needs and their circumstances. So with that brief introduction, I would like to go for my country, and in my country, though we have 20 million population, but we have so many ministries. I have selected few ministries that mainly consider about the women and girls and their education, their economic participation, and the basic need. Those ministries are like economic development, health, agriculture, child development and women's affairs, plantation industry, education, fisheries and aquatic resources development, livestock, rural community development, higher education, foreign employment and welfare, youth affairs and skills development, housing and Samurdhi. Samurdhi is one of our poverty elevation project, and health and indigenous medicine, irrigation and agriculture, women and child affairs. So these sectors are the main sectors that give opportunity or facilities for women and girl children to be active in the economy and go for equal opportunities to access the services and education and economic participation, so that if we go through this, we have all ministries. If you take all ministries contribution, only the 11 ministries I have picked up to show that what is the percentage. In 2013, it was 20% for all these relevant ministries from total budget. And in 2014, it's 13%. And in 2015, it is 15% for these relevant ministries. If you see, if you go through these highlighted things like child development and women's affairs, it is in 2015, it is only 0.03% from the total budget, the allocations. And in education in 2015, I'm sorry, I don't have 2020 budget here, but 2020 budget, for the 2023, we have the same amount for women and child affairs, 0.03% from the total budget, and education 1.80, and foreign employment and welfare 0.01. So here I would like to pay your attention on what are the main pillars of the Sri Lankan economy. That is tea plantation and free apparel industry and the foreign employment, the women who are going for work in Middle East countries and other countries. So those are the main income sources in this country. But you can see the budget allocation for those areas. It's very less. And where the other money has gone? The money has gone infrastructure development, road development, especially on defense. So those areas mainly, why? Because of those reasons only, this country has now going through a severe economic crisis, because we get a loan from other countries and we spend the money on that, the infrastructure development and defense. So there's no war here, but still the most of the budget allocations go for the defense and other public services. So if you take this 1.8 or 0.03 budget allocations, those allocations include the public servants who are engaged in these ministries, their salaries and other stuff. So then you can think, you can analyze, we can analyze how much investments on the women's issues and the children's issues and education and foreign employment, most and health. So most important areas that women empowerment. So those are very less. As a result of that less amount of funding allocations, you can see the unemployment rate by in our country. The unemployment rate by age group here in 2017, the female unemployment is double more than the male unemployment rate, because we have to we have to have strategies to break the barriers for women getting into the economic and employment. So without breaking that barriers, how we can encourage women to come forward and actively engage in the economic and other education or other level of participation in decision-making processes and all that. So the unemployment rates of women have doubled that of men since the late 1960s. And this trend has continued even though male and female unemployment rates declined from 4.4 and 9.5 in 2007 to 3.4 and 6.7 in mid-2014. But the age-specific unemployment rates reflect the same trend, 14% age for males and 29% for female unemployment rates in the age of 15 to 24. And also 7.7 and 17% in the age of 25 to 29 group. So again, the over 30 age group, that males fare better in the labor force. You can see the statistics and how that disadvantage effect on women and girls' lives. So here I would like to share some other statistics on the economically inactive population by gender. So if you go through this, you can see the urban rural sector wise, the female economically inactive population is overall, total Sri Lankan overall percentage is 74%. And it's for male, it's only 25%. This is inactive population. So majority is this country is women, but 52% of population is women. Out of them, that 74% percentage are economically inactive. And unemployment rate by level of education, that also you can see that below O level, below A level and above, they are also in each category, the female unemployment rate is higher than the male participant. So based on the data, economically inactive population around 25%, 25.6% were males and 74.4% were females. The data also shows that the number of inactive females is higher than that of males in general in all sectors. The highest percentage of the economically inactive population is reported from the group with the level of education from grade 6 to 10 for both sexes, while the lowest reported is from the group of GCA level and above. Data also shows that economically inactive males as well as females are highly concentrated in young 15 to 19 age and older above 65 age groups, while the percentage of inactive males is very low in the middle age group. The disadvantaged status of women is also clearly reflected in rising unemployment rates at each educational level in mid-2017, as reflected in the following data. Accordingly, 2 point of males and 4.3 of females among school dropouts below GCO level. 4.9 and 8.3 among GC O-level qualified, and 5 point and 11 point among those with GC A-level or higher qualification. The general analysis that emerged is that young women with low educational qualifications are more disadvantaged than their educated counterparts, and those women who are heavily engaged in childcare and domestic work are classified as outside the labor force with little recognition of their contribution to the family, which is something very we have to take into the discussions, because in our country, the women domestic work does not take into the consideration as economically active. And you can see the main three pillars of economy. The tea plantation, women, the majority of women are working in this sector and earn the money to the country. And the women who are going to abroad, and the young girls and women who are engaged in the apparel industry. But still, the women in Sri Lanka have been engaged for centuries in economic activities, such as in agriculture, local industries, and in services, but as some of their activities are undertaken at home or outside a formal workplace, they traditionally have not been included in the official labor force statistics. The labor force participation rates of women and men in 2017 were 35% and 64% respectively men. Employment growth rates have been lower than GDP growth rates. The economically active population in the country also has serious gender imbalances. For instance, in 2017, the economically active male population was 74%, while only 25% were female. The statistics are very low, that because they have not taken into consideration the traditional women's work as active economic processes. So what we can do, what is the role of women's organization and other CEOs, CXOs can contribute for this inequality? I think we must have a collection of data for evidence-based advocacy, especially research and analysis, because we don't have data on GBV, domestic violence and domestic work, that sort of information. And we have to pay our attention to collect that data for evidence-based advocacy. And also, the women's organization and other CSOs should pay attention to invest in women's empowerment. Especially, we have to establish strategic objectives in our programs. Then only we can address this inequality. And also conduct a gender audit of organizational annual budgets. Before we talk about the country annual budgets, we have to talk about our organization, how much we pay attention on women empowerment and to promote gender equality. And we also can share our resources and synergies to advocate women's and girl children's rights. So we don't need to have all the resources. We can share the resources. We can work together. That is why it is important to have the collective action for policy influences and promote gender equality. One thing I believe, that none of us cannot work gender equality alone. We have to have a collective actions, and as a not within our countries, regionally, globally, we have to have a collective action for influence the policy and promote gender equality. And especially in country like Sri Lanka, we have to have investment in women's political participation, because it is very critical and it's very less women participation in all the political space. So only in 2018 we were able to get the quota for 25% quota for the women political participation. That also women only in the local councils, not in the parliamentarian. So I have taken this picture. It is men, women from all ethnic, all religious. We are equal. We have to work for gender equality, but for that we need to look at our policies and our budget, and we have to fight for that to get, because all the main thing that we have to concern, and we have to work collectively to get more investments on women empowerment. Then only we can have justice and equal society. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Dr. Damu,
Yeah.
giving me this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chandy. That was wonderful. I think you did a very fabulous job. I think you have touched various aspects, and you also looked in terms of what could be how could we work together. I think I was very much impressed. You looked in terms of budgets, how declining are the budgets towards the issues of gender. And also you looked in terms of, I think, very specific. I appreciate the very detailed work that you have done. I now open the floor for reflection. Others can make comments, seek clarification from Chandy. Yeah. Who will start? Hello. Any questions to Chandy or any reflection to Chandy's presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, Jahrul.
Yes, Damu.
Yeah.
Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Okay.
This presentation is excellent.
Yeah.
A lot of thanks, Mr. Chandy. But my one question is,
Yeah.
it's previous data, but we know that during this time, Sri Lanka is much difficult time to struggle the gender woman participation. But I know that what is the real situation of woman participation in the Sri Lanka country? Thank you, Damuji.
Okay. So Chandy, you would like to take questions and then respond? How do you prefer?
Yeah, I would like to answer that. The women, I think so. His concern was the how much women participation in every sector. So just can I get some clarification of your question again?
Jahrul?
Yes, Damuji.
Yeah, she's asking clarification.
What is the now? What is the real position of women involvement in the different sectors?
Okay, yeah. So if I take the public sector, the majority of the public sector workers are women, but they are in the the positions of clerical and lower than and teachers, and those are that still the feminized positions only. The women are mostly get involved, but in the decision making position is still we have this glass ceiling, because it is very difficult for women to go beyond certain level. So even among the educated women, they have to, sometimes they have to stop their jobs or they have to leave. Very recently, during this political situation in our country, it is very critical situation right now. The election commission. So we have 5 commissioners in that commission. There's only one woman, and now the government is trying to postpone the local council election. So one of the thing that they can do is that the members of the commission should resign. So then there won't be a majority, so the election can't happen. So do you know what has happened? That one lady, she resigned very recently. So why she resigned? She didn't resign herself. There was so much of influences. Being a woman in that platform, there was so much of threaten, and then that sort of thing affected her to be there, and she resigned. So those are the things that in the everywhere, whether it is in the lower level or a high level positions, but you have to face so much of issues, even in the university lecturers, even within the doctors. So there's being a woman, so she still have to have struggle to perform her position. That's the situation in our country. And in political participation, it's very less. It's only 6 female parliamentarians are there in our parliament, appointed from the election, because they are not getting nominations. Others are from national list. So those are the things that in here in the situation. If I think I answered you.
Thank you, Chandi.
Thank you, Ramuji. Thank you, Chandi. I got my answer.
Okay.
Again, lot of
Thank
thanks, Chandi. Your presentation was excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy, I am reading your chat. Are you referring, is it a question to Chandi? How can these policies become sustainable over successive government regimes? Or is it a general comment?
No, that is a question to.
Okay. Oh, Chandi. Okay. Chandi, I think Nancy has a question. Yeah, Nancy, go ahead. You can raise it.
Yeah, my question is the achievements that you mentioned attributed to policies, how have they been sustainable over successive regimes? Like when there is a new leadership in government, how has that policy be continued to be enforced? Or it's the opposite?
I think our policies, I don't think that we were succeed anyway. Like, I mean, we have still gap in our policy implementation with the government regimes, whoever comes, whoever ruled this country, previous regimes or present regimes. I don't think that we have gender sensitive policies. It is a fact to talk only during the political manifestos that, but when it's come to implementation, still we have huge gap. I think to whoever government comes, so there should be a gender lens in all the decision-making layers. For that, we need to send to the parliament or a decision-making positions that gender-sensitive people, and also, but that's the most difficult task for us, because in our system, it's very corrupted, and there won't be any opportunity that sort of people to get engaged in those platforms, because of the corrupted and family, and the political situation is not allowing us to have that things. But that is why I said in my last slide that as a women's organizations or a organization who are working for women should take this up and influence government and also make community aware on to choose right people. So that's the way that we have to sustain this area in terms of influence in government. I think I have answered, Nancy, or do you have
Yes,
any
you are.
concern?
Thank you, Chandy. Thank you, Nancy, for raising. Anyone else have any specific questions to Chandy? Okay, so Chandy, I think you have done a great job.
Yeah.
I very appreciative I think the time and effort that you have taken in terms of preparing and also presenting it. I was very much impressed the way you looked in terms of gender response to policies and budgets from their effectiveness in terms of dealing with social, economic, and political spheres, and particularly in terms of touched upon these strategic gender needs in terms of violence, wages, those type of things. And I think very important is in terms of how unconsciously the budget allocations are declining or erratic. Because if you look at in terms of 3 consecutive budgets, there is a decline to the previous years. I think that's a very important factor for all the civil society organization to look at it. Also, you looked in terms of, I think one of the things that comes out is in terms of labor force participation of women and men, as well as the way, even that's why I was raising in the post. I don't know how many countries really accepted valuing women's unpaid care work as economic contribution, because you have seen that unpaid care work is outside labor force. So therefore, it doesn't get into your budgeting, your national economy. And I think I am also, you touched upon the collaboration. I think that's where we need to look at how do we collaborate among ourselves, share, exchange, so that we can collectively meet the challenge. Thank you once again, Chandy, for your wonderful input. So we will proceed in terms of starting it. Okay. Before
Ramya, yes, she wants to. Do we have time, or shall I share it?
I think, Presentina is asking you to display the first 2 slides. If you can do it, please.
Yeah. This is do national policies and this one. And
no, I think she is referring to the other 2. Yeah, this and the next one. Yeah, is that correct, Presentina?
If Dr. Damayu, I have shared with you the presentation. If anyone would like, I'm happy to. You can share with the group. There's no any.
Thank you. I will do that. Okay, let's proceed. You can stop the screen, Chandy.
Yeah. Sorry.
I will start with Veronica's. She was asking whether I would explain about this intersectionality. So how is this coming into the intersectionality? Because there are inequalities and discrimination have got different access, different angles to that. It could be, one could be gender, other could be in terms of disability, or it could be, you can look at in terms of the location from which you are coming, in terms of rural, urban, or within urban, particularly in terms of the slums, or it could be race, it could be the tribal, indigenous communities and other communities. So these are different access to inequality. Each of these social constructs bring in inequality and discrimination. So using these, they all are interconnected. For example, if you are looking in terms of gender inequality is influenced, one, by being a gender, woman, man, and other gender. Also, if you are a woman and if you are a disabled, that will be another access to your inequality. If you are coming from rural areas, that would be a third one that you would bring in. Or if you are coming from a slum area, it could be a different one. Or if you are living with HIV. So these are different access to discrimination and inequality. So therefore they are connecting, integrating to each other, because so we need to look at in terms, if we are looking into inequality and discrimination, you need to see all these different access. So that the interplay of these different access to inequality and discrimination is called intersectionality. So intersects the other axis of inequality intersects with one another. That's why it is called intersectionalities. So if you really want to understand what are the differential needs of women, men, and men, you need to look at in terms of, you can't treat woman as generic one. Within women, you may have to look at women from the poor communities, women from disabled, women from, these are the different access that need to bring. So that's why those are the things called intersectionality. Intersects, because the different axes of inequality, discrimination, they overlap, they integrate, and they widen. Is that clear, Veronica?
Yes, that's clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's move on. I think Sandy has showed us the way. Let's look at in terms of in our own countries. Can someone say, because in terms of the how national policies and budgets reinforce gender inequality, it could be in terms of formulating the policies or budgets, it could be enforcing them, putting them into practice, or in terms of implementation. Enforcement is more in terms of accountability, using the procedures that can be done. So can someone from your country, if you can take any one policy and then go through, how does that policy, I think the good thing is yesterday we started in Kenyan context about the separation thing. We can start with that and then let us see in terms of how does that impact the inequality, reinforce the inequality. Yes, Veronica, you have?
No, I'm okay. I got it clear. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, can someone start? Can you take any one policy and then share your comments? Hello? How does the policy in your country reinforce gender inequality? Jessica, can I ask you to start? Helena?
I'm not really ready with an answer.
Okay. Okay, Nancy. Yeah, Nancy. Yeah, yes, Nancy.
Yeah, I'd like to give an example of the government deployment policy,
Okay.
which requires government staff to be transferred to any region within the Republic of Kenya without employees questioning. And it is made as part of the agreements or terms and conditions of service.
Okay.
In such case, you find that could be a female, because the transfers doesn't look at whether you are a male or a female.
Okay.
And you find that, of course, most women would prefer maybe an early retirement or not to take up government jobs because of such kind of arrangement. But where they sign up for it, you find that women are deployed to even region, actually most regions away from their homes. So it means that she either moves with the children or she leaves the children behind in the village as she goes to work in another locality. So such policy has really promoted inequality in the sense that you find it favors more of men because men would go anywhere they would want to go. And it means that women will not be able to access certain employment within government because of such arrangement.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. I think that's a wonderful one, because how blind, gender blind are the policies and procedures. So it's a discriminatory, and it is in terms of putting the woman at a disadvantaged position. So either you accept or you reject. So both have got implications for woman. If she accepts and moves out, then she has, I think yesterday, I think it was a very important one where you were talking about mental burden. Is it's a burden to her because when she leaves the family and then goes out of their location. Otherwise, she is deprived of the employment if she chooses to remain where she is. Thank you, Nancy. So let's Presentina.
Yes, Doctor, good afternoon.
Yeah.
I would like to share that a certain policy can reinforce inequalities. If the document itself does not refer specifically to women, but it talks about the citizen at all, and doesn't refer any place or talking specifically about men or women. So women can be omitted, and this is a way of reinforcing inequalities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Presentina. I think that's why I think that the two concepts that Chandy has brought in, which we will discuss next week, in terms of how do you look at gender perspective, is in terms of sensitivity and responsiveness. There are other stages of gender sensitivity. We'll come to that. So therefore, how do we how does our actions reflect the sensitivity to the gender? That's, I think, what Presentation was also raising it. Nancy has raised it. Let me see whether there are any other male member who would like. Francisca, your views, please. Can someone else? Catalina? Millicent? Michela? Natalia? Paul? Can you also reflect any policy in your country? Because now Nancy and Presentina have raised it. Hello? Yes, Presentina?
Yes, Prof, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in my country, this group of people will not be referred in any policy. But at this moment, I mean, now, this group of people are not referred in a certain gender policies. I'm talking about the LGBT
Okay.
community.
Okay.
The instrument do not refer exactly to them.
Yeah.
I think one day it will happen
Yeah.
because things are going, many things are changing because in our country we are implementing the majority of the instruments, gender instruments, that's global. I mean, we have some which are regional from SADC and even some national instruments. So I think one day this will happen, but now there are some instruments which exclude this LGBT community. Thank you.
From where are you?
It is. I'm saying it excludes because it doesn't refer to specifically. They are omitted.
Yeah. No, I'm just
I'd
asking.
like people to understand it very well. Yes, I'm from Mozambique.
Okay. No, President, I think you raised it in terms of excluded, but I even say in terms of not even recognized. Many countries, they don't. It's still rudimentary for them to recognize beyond binaries, beyond looking at woman and man. There are other gender in terms of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. So therefore, the first of all, in terms of recognizing them as gender identities, and then including them. I think there are two different things, but both need to happen. Thank you for raising that. I think, yeah, we have looked at yesterday, I think, but today, I think we need.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone else? Mishala is still not yet recognized. Yes, yes, Catalina.
Oh, hi everyone. Sorry, I joined in late.
Yeah.
So I didn't follow most of the discussions.
Okay.
But to catch up, I think in our country, in the last population census, they had 3 types of categories: female, male, and I, which I means intersect.
Okay.
So that is a step in the forms.
Yeah.
But in the real life, I don't think there is a much recognition, but at least for once you could choose whether you're male or female or intersect.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Good. But I think that's why I think it's at least certainly a first step, recognizing that there is beyond male and female. But I think if you talk to those people, they do not want to put all of them into one box, because they are two different diversities that they bring in. Okay, I think slowly it might change. Yeah, Antasia is also saying that Kenya LGBT is not even recognized at all. Yes, Veronica?
there's this the labor laws. That's where I get there's a lot reinforces gender inequality. In Kenya, the Children Act is clear about the age someone should a child shouldn't who is a child and they shouldn't be in the labor force under 18 years.
Okay.
But when you get in other labor laws in Kenya, the same, you get that they have a leeway and they say the law allows that a child of 15 years can work as long as it is not hazardous work.
Okay.
So with this leeway, you find that it is girl children who are forced into domestic servitude, and there's this law that protects the perpetrators.
Yeah.
So you get girls as young as 15. Of course, it is them who are mostly used in this domestic work, which the law clarifies them as not hazardous. So that labor law in Kenya, there's disparity in the labor law.
Yeah.
And that is really bringing an issue. Again, the law on from international law or from ILO, the law on domestic servitude has not been ratified in Kenya. So there is no law that have been ratified that actually addresses domestic work, domestic servant service, how much money they should get, how to regulate that industry. And so the people who suffer most are women, because now they do domestic work, they're employed and they're underpaid, they live under conditions that are not conducive because there's actually no clear law to protect them or to even define how much they should be paid.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renuka. So it's see what you all been raising is in terms of even formulating those policies, there is a gap. There is a gap in terms of excluding a particular gender or being blind to or insensitive to the needs of women and other gender. Yeah, I think Nancy was saying in terms of, yeah, certainly it has become a political subject for people to, so politically correct subject. So you, in public, you accept it, but in private, you don't act on it. Anyone else? Yes, Jaharul.
Yes, Damuji.
Yeah.
I share in my Bangladesh present status of gender equality.
Yeah. Take any one policy and then say it. Huh?
Not just overall real situation in Bangladesh of gender equality.
Okay.
Bangladeshi women have been struggling to establish their rights in family, society, and in the state. In reality, women are still facing discrimination, exclusion, and injustice, and have a negligible influence in decision-making process in a male-dominated society of Bangladesh. Discriminatory laws and policies hinder formal equality, and social political conditions prevent women from exercising their rights. Girls are often considered a burden, especially for poor husbands, where they are at a risk to marriage at an early age, and where the practice of dowry is thought illegal, continues, and is burdensome. Women are usually the last eat and meal time, and 30% of the women are chronically men are. Furthermore, violence against women make women especially vulnerable or prevent their from fully taking part in society. However, women are opportunities and public participation in Bangladesh have a transformed for recent decades. For example, a major progress has been made in closing the gender gaps in school enrollment at both primary and secondary level. Girls outnumber boys enroll. Many women are now member of the local government council that have important responsibilities for rural and urban development. The rapid growth of the garments industry have provided numerous formal sector jobs for women who comprise over 90% of its labor force. It has significantly contributed to Bangladesh annual GDP growth rate of over 5% the past decade. Despite having under representation of women at the different level, the government of Bangladesh has been implementing different steps to ensure gender equality to women empowerment in the country. Through the Vision 2021 and 2041, the mention has been created the tracking for the Bangladesh is middle and high income level. Respectively, the 7th 5-year plan and the Bangladesh government consider women engaging in the political, economical activities as a cross-cutting issue and one of the main drive the transformation. Realizing the essence of ensure gender equality, the government has shown the committed to attain the Sustainable Development Goals SDG and of gender equality and empowerment women and implementing the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, and the Beijing Platform of Action Bangladesh has already sustainable achievement the MDGs. It has achieved gender party in primary and secondary education in national level. Among other success, the MDGs Bangladesh has been working the recently to the ensure women and overall development by ensuring their equal and active participation in the mainstream social economical activities and removing the gender equality. The government of Bangladesh has been implementing different initiatives so that gender equality and women empowerment can be ensured in the country. The following some important initiative of the government. Thank you, Damoji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jaharulji.
Welcome.
Okay. Because we heard from Kenya, we heard from Mozambique, and people from other countries, can you share in terms, can you identify a policy and see how does it reinforce gender inequality? Are there people from other countries? Bangladesh, I think Jahrul has said. Anyone from Botswana? And someone else, Natalia? Millicent? Paul? Can you please share your Okay, let's move in terms of how do we ensure that, what do you make to see that the policies become more in contributing more to increasing gender equality? What can we do? Can somebody share your thoughts? Antasia?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. What I would recommend is that the policymakers should make a deliberate effort to ensure that the policies are gender sensitive. For instance, in Kenya, we have affirmative action, whereby there is a 2/3 rule, which states that in at any given time or in the public offices, if one gender is not represented, deliberate effort should be made. In Kenya these days, we are having an office of women representatives who are now members of our parliament.
Okay.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Antasia. What are the other views, other ideas? Shirley? Can I hear? Antasia, you have a supplement to make?
No, I'm lowering my hand.
Okay, okay. Right, okay. Which of these gender strategic needs that you would include? Who's that? Vera, in any policy advocacy, the first step is to educate the girl, the rights holder. Should be continuous because new trends emerge daily, and the girl and the right holders need to know these new trends. So that, okay, that's one area where how do you bring a public awareness on the issues? But how do you influence the state? Vera, can you share? Vera, how do you bring in? How do you influence the state?
Well, to bring in the public interest is to ensure that women take part in public participation spaces, because this has been a reserve for the men. Many public participation spaces in my country, you'll find that it's men who dominate. And that is why you find that most issues of women are not appropriately budgeted for when bills come to the public for debate, or before then they go back to the county assembly. Number two also is just ensuring that the government also becomes responsible for ensuring that the spaces are made safe for women to actually attend, because most of these public spaces are normally dominated by men, and most of the men are you'll find that because most of these budgets are politically inclined, you find that politicians have, they ferry in goons, like rowdy people, to come for the budget, public participation on budgeting issues, so that their will or whatever budgets they want to be passed, people can pass them. So women fear going to these spaces because the spaces are not safe. So if the government can actually assure women that the space is going to be safe, then it is good. And then also the fact that some women, most women would not even participate if they go. Then normally you'll find that the men are telling them to wait for issues that touch on the, like the NGAF fund, that is the women fund or something of that sort. And, try to like sway them not to have a say in these other policies. Like this is not meant for women. You wait for those ones that go to affirmative action. That is what is left for you. And even within that affirmative action, you'll still find that men still have a say, and women will take a step back to actually say, okay, fine, the way the men want it,
Okay.
And also the fact that even when policies are gender sensitive, even the implementation of these policies, it is very lax because the government does not own them. You find that the government waits for civil society to actually implement 90% of the policies that have been passed, especially those that deal on gender issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think well, this is a universal phenomenon, universal issue or a global issue. I think there are policies exist, but the commitment to enforce and implement the policies are subjected to the convenience of politicians. So I think that, I mean, how do we deal with this? Is in terms of one, it is not that the policies, see, one is in terms of having a policy is one step. But what is more important is how does that policy actualized? How does it translate into action? And that is where we find the gaps. Now, how do we bridge this gap? Can the civil society join and then challenge this, hold the state accountable to enforcing this? I think is the area that one need to look into. Jessica, you have. Jessica, do you have anything to share? Why is there less participation? People are not opening up. Any reason? Yeah. Vera, can you explain your comment? Intersectionality and the gender mainstreaming in all sectors?
I think that it's high time that gender advocates then realize there's various arms or various methods to actually be able to advocate for, you know, gender sensitive and gender responsive policies and laws. So that if we are looking at, for example, climate change, you know, how are we going to mainstream gender? Because we all know that if we're talking about climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies, you'll find that a lot of the women, you know, like, well, there's a gender that has been left out, even just right from the decision, you know, like inception's phase, you know. So, and then when it comes to implementing, then the gender is then brought in at a later age, you know, like, or a later stage, where they only tick boxes that women were also available, or very few, not many are actually involved. So the bigger, the more the merrier. So the women movement, you know, needs to look at all the facets of them coming, you know, like, how are we going to enjoy all of this and ensure that gender mainstreaming in all the industry. You know, for instance, I didn't even know that the law says, you know, like the law of contract of even just construction, you know, it says that when construction is about to take, you know, like starting to take place, the contractor is supposed to actually still do the affirmative action, you know, meaning that if they're having laborers, it has to be same, you know, like women and men, okay, half like that, which is not happening. You know, you'll find that most of the construction sites, the women only bring in food, you know, those ones who come to sell, you know, or they're left to fetch water. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I meant.
Yeah. So too powerful. I think we need to look in terms of policies and budgets. How important is intersectionality? Because it informs if your analysis is intersectional and your understanding of the needs, aspirations, and perspectives are intersectional, then your policies and budgets will represent or reflect those intersectional identities, so that you take care of all diversities that exist in the population and in terms of meeting their needs. Let's see, anyone else before we close? I'm just calling because I would like the people who have not spoken. Yes, Catalina. Go ahead, Catalina.
Okay. I was just thinking about the policies, laws, and their implementation. In our government, we have the judiciary, we have the executive, and we have the parliament, which is the legal arm that formulates the policies and laws.
Yeah.
There's one time there was a succession case in court about land and the subdivision to the various members of the family. So when it came to court, there were some men and women, and then there was one member, I think a female or a woman who was not in court. So the men decided to address the court and say that she's comfortable with the property she has in wherever she's married. So the interesting twist was that the magistrate said, no, it is you people, the community and the men who are not giving her information. She should come to court and inform the court that she is comfortable, not for you to think about her comfortability with whatever she has, wherever she is married.
Yeah.
So now the process could not proceed.
Yeah.
So in this effect, the people who have the office bearers are supposed to maybe sensitize the masses or the female who do not know their rights.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting because that magistrate had to get the lady to come to court and sign or say it by herself.
Yeah, that's right. I think that no one else can represent, we ourselves can represent truly what our needs are, what our concerns are. I think there is no one to talk on our behalf. Well said, Catalina.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Jessica? Any? Okay, let's look at what is the comment on today's discussion? Francisca? Helena? Michelle? Millicent? Paul? Shirley? We have two Shirleys, Shirley Katie, Shirley Singveti. So anyone like to share what is the takeaway today? Whatever we discussed. Yeah.
Just to add on.
Okay. Yes, Shirley.
Yeah, so I'll just emphasize on the bit of strengthening the relationship, or rather building a relationship between the state and non-state actors.
Okay.
Looking at it from a point of view where the state actors, this being the government and other bodies of authority who rely on non-state actors, such as CBOs and the NGOs, the civil society, gender activists, human rights activists. So they rely on them to be able to implement these policies. Why? Because the non-state actors are on ground. They interact with the communities and the societies at a certain level, that is the field level, whereby they're able to involve the women, the men, the children in different aspects when it comes to gender equality. So for the non-state actors to be able to advocate and create awareness on matters gender equality, they require to have synergy between them and these bodies of authority, like the government, because we would not expect the state actors to come down to that level whereby they're interacting with the communities unless on very special occasions. Therefore, this synergy between the state and the non-state actors would be very instrumental. And also another bit is the multi-sector approach, whereby we have institutions that are working probably in agriculture or education or health, complementing each other and not competing with each other, because at the end of the day, they have one goal in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. I think that was a very, very pertinent one, and how do we bring in this harmony between state and non-state actors. So any further, yeah, I think it's a compliment to Chandi in terms how she differentiated sensitivity, gender sensitivity. So any quick comments before we close? Anyone else would like to make a comment? Okay, thank you very much for your participation. So see you on Monday, same time. Bye, bye,
Hi.
bye,
Thank you.
Bye.
bye.